So it says, talking about the flood, it says, and all flesh died that moved upon the earth, both of fowl and of cattle and of beasts, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and every man, all in whose nostrils was the breath of life, of all that was in the dry land died, and every living substance was destroyed, which was upon the face of the ground, both man and cattle, and the creeping things, and the fowl of the heaven, and they were destroyed from the earth. And Noah only remained alive, and they that were with him in the ark, and the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days. And so we know that as it was in the days of Noah, so it's going to be in the days when Christ comes back. And so we'll just review for a second, okay, guys? So we're talking about the Great Tribulation. So here's what we know so far. We know that there's going to be a 7 year 7 years in which the covenant of God is confirmed with the Israelites, and that in the midst of that 7 years, after Satan is cast down, he's going to him and his angels are cast down, that he's going to open up the bottomless pit. We know that there's going to be this locust come out, and they're going to be able to hurt, except for the 144,000, they're going to be able to hurt men for 5 months. We know that that Moses and Elijah are going to show up. We know there's going to be a great famine. It's going to quit raining. The rain's going to cease. Trees and grass are going to begin to wither and die. We know that Satan's going to enter into the Antichrist. We know that the Antichrist is going to go into the temple, and he's going to sit in the temple, showing himself that he's God. And so what we want to do today is I want to give you a little bit more clarity on 4 different things. The dragon, that's the devil. The beast, which is the Antichrist. The 10 kings, which are the 10 horns, which are the 10 kings, which are going to reign with the beast or the Antichrist during the Antichrist kingdom, and the false prophet. Okay, so I want you to look at the dragon, and it says, and there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon. Now we already know who the dragon is. The dragon is Satan, and he's going to tell you that this dragon has 7 heads, 10 horns, and upon these 7 heads, they're going to be what? 7 crowns. Now we determined when we looked at the beast. Remember, the beast looks just like the dragon. He has 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his 10 horns there are 10 crowns, right? And we determined that the crowns represent what? Yeah, remember?
They represent kings, right?
Yeah.
So if the crowns represent kings, on the devil, the crowns are on his what?
Head.
So if the crowns represent kings, that means these 7 heads are what? They represent 7 what?
Crown.
The 7 the crowns represent kings. So if there's 7 crowns, if there's 7 crowns, the 7 heads are representative of 7 kings on Satan, okay? So Satan has 7 heads, and those 7 heads are 7 kings. Now, if you go over to Revelation 17:10, look what he says. Remember, the 7 heads on Satan represent 7 kings. And look what he says. And there are what?
7 kings.
See, 7 heads, 7 crowns. Those are kings. So there are 7 kings. And now he's going to tell you something. He's going to tell you that 5 are what?
Fallen.
So the first one is over, the second one is fallen, the third, the fourth, and the fifth. 5 of the 7 are already fallen. Now the other, he says, no, he says, and 1 is. 5 are fallen and 1 is. So if these 5 are fallen, the 6th one is. So when you see 5 are fallen and 1 is, this is the 6th one right here, okay? And how many total are there? There's 7. And right here would be the 6th one. So here comes the 7th one. And the other, right, because 5 are fallen and 1 is, there's 6. The other, because there's 7, the other is not yet come. So when the 7th one cometh, he's going to continue what?
Church.
So the 7th king or the 7th head on Satan will continue a short space, okay? Now look what he says. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th. Now, that sounds confusing because he's talking about the 8th king, but on Satan there's only what?
7.
There's only 7. So what's he trying to tell you? I'm going to show you what I think he's talking about. So the beast, so the 7th king comes along, and he's only going to continue how long? A short space. That's the 7th king. So I believe what happens is that 7th king is going to die, okay? He's going to continue a short space, right? So when I say the 7th king, I'm talking about on Satan, that means the 7th what? Head. So one of his heads is going to die, or one of his kings is going to die. And he's going to tell you that that 7th king, the beast that was and is not, he's going to be the 8th king, but guess what? He is of the what?
7.
So this 7 here, even though they call him the 8th king, he is of the what?
7.
He's one of those 7 kings. But what happens, he comes and he only continues a short space, and he, guess what happened to him? He dies. So how do we know that one of these 7 heads, because the Antichrist is of the what? He's of one of these 7. And how do we know that he's one? Because look what it says. And one of his heads, one of the 7 heads that are on Satan, because this beast that continues a short space, even though he's the 8th, he's considered the 8th king, he is the of the 7th. And guess what? One of the heads, he saw one of Satan's 7 heads, because these heads are kings, as it were, wounded to what? To death. And the deadly wound was healed. And so when that beast dies, right, guess what? His deadly wound will be what? Healed.
Healed.
So one of the seven kings, or one of the seven heads dies. And his deadly one will be healed, and he will be one of those seven is going to be actually the eighth king. And why does he call him the eighth king? But I believe he calls him the eighth, and he's of the seven, is because he does die, and then he's resurrected. And that's what we see. He says, the beast that was and is not, right? The one that is alive and the one that dies of the seven, he's going to be the eighth king, even though he's of the seven. And that's why he says, and when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast, which is one of the seven heads on Satan, he is the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit. He says, and I beheld another beast coming up. Here's the false prophet out of the earth, and he had power. He had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon, and he exercised all the power of the first beast before him. And he causeth the earth and them that dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was what? Healed.
Yeah.
And that's why he called them the beast that thou sawest. Now look what he says right here. He says, the other, when he cometh, he must continue a short space, and the beast that was and is not, he's the eighth, but he is of the seven kings, or the seven heads on Satan. And that's why he says down here, hold on, whoops. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition, and they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, because they're going to see him dead, and then what? Then they're going to see him alive, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. So do y'all understand what I'm saying there? Is there, y'all got any questions? Y'all understand that, John?
Yeah.
Okay, so y'all understand that the eighth king is really one of these seven, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, it's just that when he dies and he's resurrected, he's called the eighth king. Okay, so but he is of those seven that are on Satan. All right, so let's talk about him for a second. Now he says, here he is. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast. We've already determined this is the Antichrist. We saw him rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horn 10 crowns. So the Antichrist has 10 horns and 10 crowns upon him. So when we go over to Daniel 7, we're going to see 4 beasts coming up out of the sea. And what we're going to find out is that the 4th beast is the Antichrist. Not the first 3 beasts. We'll talk about the first 3 in a little bit. But the 4th one that comes up these are going to be the same beast right here. So look what he says. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts, the 3 that came before it, that were before it. And this beast has what?
10 horns.
10 horns. So he's showing you that this beast right here, which has 10 horns, is, guess which beast? Not the first one, not the second one, not the third one, but the what? The 4th one. And so let me show you. The beast, and we know who he is. He is one of the kings, or one of the heads on Satan. And guess what it says about him? He's going to ascend. The Antichrist, the beast, he's going to die, and he's going to ascend out of the what? Bottomless pit. Now see, the beast that thou sawest was and is not and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. Now let me show you something, and guys, I'm gonna tell you that I'm not positive about this, but I want you, and I don't know exactly what it, I don't understand it very deeply yet, but I want you to see something. Now look at this beast. I stood upon the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast, and this beast, he rises up out of the sea. So what does it mean to rise up out of the sea? And we know that the Bible says there is no prophecy of the scripture of what? Any private interpretation. So we already learned what the beast, we already learned what the beast was. What does it mean to rise up out of the sea? So when we go over to Daniel, right, and we see these four beasts come up, because this is right here, this is the fourth beast. Now look, Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heaven strove upon the great what? Remember? The Antichrist rises up out of the what? The sea. And here you see all four of them, and we know the fourth one's the Antichrist. We see all four of these beasts are going to come up from somewhere, because we see the four winds strive upon the great sea, and four great beasts came up from what? The sea. Just like this, the Antichrist comes up from the sea. He says all four, the fourth one is the Antichrist, but even the three that were before the Antichrist, all of them come up from what? The sea. Now, understand, this is the what? The vision. In other words, this isn't the interpretation. This is just the vision. So when we go down to get the interpretation, we're going to find out what it means to come up from the sea. He says, I came near, this is the interpretation, I came near unto one of them that stood by and asked him the truth of all this, talking about this right here, right? So he told me and made me know the interpretation of my what? My vision. These great beasts, right? Here they are. These great beasts, which are what? Four. Here they are. Four great beasts. Are, he's going to tell you what these four beasts are what? So these four beasts are four kings. And up here he says they came up from the sea, right? So what he says here, this is the interpretation of coming up from the sea. These are four kings which shall arise out of the what? So to come up from the sea, that is the vision, but the interpretation is to arise out of the what? So when you see in Revelation 13, you see the Antichrist rise up out of the sea, he's basically telling you he's arising out of the what?
Out of the earth.
Out of the earth. So do y'all see that?
Yeah.
So the only reason I'm telling you guys, because I want you to understand, this is a I'm not saying what I'm getting ready to tell you is true. I'm saying this is a possibility. You see the beast ascend out of the bottomless what? Pit, out of the bottomless pit. Well, what is the bottomless pit? It's hell, right? And where is hell? It is in the nether parts of the what? Of the earth. So if the hell and the bottomless pit are in the nether parts of the earth, the beast is ascending out of the what? Out of the earth, right? Well, what does he say here? He says, I saw this beast arise out of the what? So I'm wondering whether or not when he sees the beast ascend out of the bottomless pit, because that we know that's hell, that we know that hell's in the nether parts of the earth, whether or not he's talking about the same thing. In other words, when we see these four kings arise out of the sea or arise out of the earth, I wonder if not these kings, they're coming out of the bottomless pit too. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not confusing you guys. Y'all understand what I'm not saying that it's absolutely true that when the beast is ascending out of the bottomless pit, that's what it's talking about here. That is arising out of the earth. I'm just saying that is a possibility, considering that the bottomless pit is in the where? It's in the earth. And so when you see them arise out of the earth, maybe he's talking about ascending out of the bottomless pit. Okay, so now that I confused you guys, I just want you to I want to make clear something to you, that the beast or the Antichrist is a man or a king, okay? Because we're going to find out something else about the beast in just a little bit. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast. It is the number of what? A man. So the number of the beast is the number of a man, showing that the beast is a man. He says, and I stood upon the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast, right, we already learned, the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power. So the devil is going to give the beast, which is a man, power. That's why he calls the beast a what? A him or his, and his seat, his throne. And he's going to give that man great authority. He tells you the 5th angel poured out his vial upon the seat, right? Because he receives his seat from the dragon. He's going to pour out that vial upon the seat or the throne of the beast, which is a man, and upon his what? Kingdom. So that this man is going to have a kingdom. And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war with him that sat on the horse and against his army, and the beast was taken. Okay, this is a man, and with him the false prophet, which is a man. Okay, and the false prophet is going to do something. He's going to work miracles or wrought miracles before him. So the false prophet is going to perform miracles before the beast, which is a him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worshipped his, or the beast, his image. Now look what it says. The false prophet and the beast, these both were cast alive. So they are living human beings. They're cast alive into the lake of fire. Now I think y'all already knew that. But what's going to happen is a lot of people are going to tell you that the beast is not the king, but it's the kingdom. What I'm going to show you in just a little bit is that the beast can be the king or the kingdom. Okay? In other words, can you be a king if you have no kingdom?
No.
So they're naturally, if you have a king, he's going to have a what with him? He's going to have a kingdom. And so I'll show you in a minute that this can represent not just the man, the king, but it can also represent his kingdom. Now, because look what it says right here. He says, these great beasts, he tells you very clearly, those 4 beasts that come up, which are for what?
King.
They're 4 kings. So we know absolutely that the Antichrist is a man, and the beast. The beast is a man, but we also know absolutely that the beast is not just a man. The beast is a what? Is a king. And we know that he's a king because on Satan has 7 heads, and those heads are 7 kings, and that beast is wounded So, and he's one of those kings. He's wounded to death, right? So we know that the Antichrist, the beast, is a king. He is a man. He is wounded to death, and he ascends out of the bottomless pit. All right. So do y'all understand all that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about the 10 kings. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and I saw, here it is. We know who it is. We don't even have to call him the beast anymore. This is the Antichrist. So we see the Antichrist come up out of the sea or up out of the earth, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Now, upon his horns are what?
10 crowns.
And we know crowns represent what?
Kings.
Kings. So these 10 horns, if that's correct, these 10 crowns on these 10 horns should be kings. This beast is going to have, the Antichrist is going to have 10 kings because these 10 horns have 10 crowns. So let's look. That's what he's going to tell you. The 10 horns which thou sawest are what? Are 10 kings. And so what he says, they received no kingdom yet, but they're going to receive power as kings for 1 hour with the Antichrist. So these 10 horns are 10 kings that receive power as kings 1 hour with the Antichrist. Now look what he says about these kings. These have one mind. In other words, when he says they have one mind, they're all going to agree together what to do. Okay? They're going to agree with the Antichrist, and they're going to do something. They've got one mind, and whatever it is they want to do to the world, they agree this is what we should do. And they shall give, these 10 kings are going to give their power and their strength unto who?
Beast.
To the Antichrist, right?
Christ. Yeah.
And these kings, what it says about these kings are going to make war with the Lamb. So we know that these 10 kings, we know they're going to be around when Jesus comes back. Okay? And the Lamb is going to overcome them because he's Lord of Lords and King of Kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. So let's go on. Let's look down here. And the 10 horns, because the 10 horns are what? 10 kings, right? So these 10 kings, which you saw upon the what? The beast. So the 10 kings which are upon the Antichrist, and we know that's true because what? Here's the beast, and here's the 10 horns. So he says, the 10 kings which you saw upon the beast or the Antichrist, these 10 kings are going to hate who? The whore. Who's the whore, guys? Who's the great whore, the woman?
Israel.
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem, right? So these 10 kings are going to hate Jerusalem. And guess what they're going to do to Jerusalem? They're going to make Jerusalem her what? Desolate and naked, and they shall eat Jerusalem's flesh. And guess what they're going to do to Jerusalem? These 10 kings are going to burn Jerusalem with what?
Fire.
Fire. You know why? For God hath put it in these 10 kings' hearts to fulfill his will and to agree. And also, this is what God has put in their hearts, these 10 kings' hearts, to give their kingdom unto who? Unto the Antichrist. That's why he says they give their power and their strength unto the beast. They give their kingdom unto the beast. So that's what they're going to do. So we see this. This is the beast that rises up out of the sea, and we see these 10 horns, or these 10 kings that are going to give all their power and their strength to the Antichrist And so we've already determined that the beast that rises up out of the sea, when you go to Daniel 7, that is which beast? Remember? It's the fourth beast. So this is the same, this beast right here, this fourth beast is this beast right here, right? Now watch this. He says, and I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it. And this fourth beast, which, remember, these four beasts are four kings, right? So the fourth one, the fourth king is the Antichrist. And guess what? It had what? So the fourth beast, if this fourth beast is really this one here, if this is the fourth beast, right? Then the 10 horns, right? And this beast represent 10 kings. So if this is right, then these 10 horns and this fourth beast should represent what? 10 kings, right? Because he don't tell you they got 10 crowns on them. Not here. He just says this fourth beast has 10 horns. So when you go down, just to confirm that this is the same, this is the Antichrist, look what he says. Then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron and his nails of brass, which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet, and of the 10 horns that were in his what? Head. So this beast that rises up, this fourth beast that rises up, his head, he's got a head. I'm going to show you this in a second. He's got a head, and guess how many horns are in his head?
10.
10. And now let's look what they represent. Well, first of all, let me show you this. He says the dragon has 7 heads, right? And we know that one of those heads is what? The Antichrist. And we know this is the Antichrist. So in the head, the fourth beast's head, we see 10 kings. Now watch this. He says, these great beasts, which are four kings. Now look what he says, which have already risen, right? It says they shall arise. In other words, that means in the future, okay? So these are 4 kings that are going to come up out of the earth in the future. When Daniel's writing this, he's saying in the future they're going to rise up. He says, thus he said, and now I want to let, now I told you I was going to show you that the beast represents what? These great beasts are for what? Kings. I said that sometimes the beasts represent the kings, and sometimes the beasts represent the kingdom, right? So just because we say this fourth king that, or this fourth beast that comes out, we say he's the Antichrist, but it can also be his kingdom. Now watch this. Thus he said, the fourth beast, because right up here he said the four beasts are what? Are kings. But look what he says here. The fourth beast shall be the what?
Fourth king.
So the beast not only represents the king, but it also represents his what? His kingdom. So when you see these 4 beasts rise up, they're not just kings, but they're also, a king has a kingdom. Do you understand that? Okay. So he says, thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces. Now remember, in Daniel, he doesn't say you got a beast that rises up and he has 7 crowns on his 7 heads. He doesn't say that. He doesn't even talk about the heads. He just says this 4th beast has 10 what? Horns.
Right.
And look what he says. And just to let you know that this is the same beast, Daniel, the 4th beast is the same beast as in Revelation 13. He tells you, and the 10 horns out of this kingdom are what?
10 kings.
Are 10. Now look, he just gave you an interpretation of what he says here. The 10 horns that were in his head, right? But down here, look what he says. Whoops. So you can see both of them. Okay. So the 10 horns that are in his head, he tells you that the 10 horns out of what?
His kingdom.
Showing you that the head is a picture of what?
Kingdom.
The kingdom. So the 10 horns in his head are the 10 horns in his kingdom, right? And that's what we were trying to show you, that sometimes when you see a king, it can also represent his kingdom. It doesn't always represent the king. It doesn't always represent the kingdom. It can be either one. So anyway, let's see. So we know a crown can represent the king or the kingdom. Okay. So let me fix something here. For some reason, forgot. Okay, so we've talked about the dragon. We've talked about his 7 heads. He has 7 crowns on he's got 7 kings. We know one of those is the Antichrist. We know one of those heads is wounded to death, which is the beast. We know that the beast is the 4th kingdom, right? And we know that in his kingdom, in his head, there are going to be what? 10 kings. And so now we want to talk about the false prophet. And here's where, guys, that the Lord has kind of showed me some stuff this week, because I'm going to ask you a question, because John, you've been studying in the Baptist church for a while, right? So tell me, outside of Revelation chapter 13, because you see another one rise up, right? And he has 2 horns like a lamb, right? When he talks about the false prophet in Revelation 13, where else in the scripture does he talk about the false prophet that you know of?
False prophet shall arise. Yeah.
Do you know anywhere else in the scripture outside of Revelation that the Bible talks about the false prophet?
One of the vessels.
Yeah.
Say again.
One of the vessels of.
That said, the false prophet will arise, like that.
Where at in scripture?
I don't remember. Yeah. I'll search.
So okay, let me move on, and I'll ask you again here. So here's Revelation 13, first verse. Here's the Antichrist, and here's the 10 kings, right? And then when you get down to verse 11, he says, "And I beheld what?" There's a beast. That's the Antichrist. Now another beast comes up out of the earth. He's got 2 horns like a lamb. He speaks as a dragon. He has all the same power as what? The first beast, or the Antichrist, which is before. So the Antichrist comes before him, right? And he causeth the whole earth and them that dwell therein to worship this beast here. So this is the false prophet, okay? The second beast. So do you know anywhere else in scripture, in the Bible, that it talks about the false prophet other than this here in Revelation?
Matthew.
And so what I want to show you is that what we've been doing, at least from what I've learned in modern Christianity, is that this is pretty much, it makes it that a lot of the Christianity is giving credit to the Antichrist for doing certain things, which really the false prophet's doing. And I'm going to prove to you, okay? I'm going to prove to you who, I'm going to show you somewhere else in the scripture where the false prophet is, okay? Now watch this. So you see 4 great beasts come up from the sea, right? Now watch this. And after this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast. So who's this right here? The 4th beast.
Antichrist.
This is the Antichrist. We know because he's got what? He's got 10 horns, right? So we see him, and here he comes, and here's and who's the 10 horns?
10 kings.
They're the 10 kings in his kingdom, right? Now watch this. So I considered the horns. I considered the 10 kings. And behold, there came up among those 10 kings another what?
Yeah.
Another little horn. So here's the question. If this is the Antichrist and these are the 10 kings, can this be the Antichrist?
No.
No. And so what we do in modern Christianity is we make this the Antichrist. And in reality, what I'm going to show you is this is the false prophet. Okay? So among these 10 kings, because here's the beast. He's the 4th king. He's the 4th kingdom. He has 10 kings in his kingdom. And after they come up, there's going to come up among these 10 kings another horn, another king. And when he comes up, he says, before whom there were 3 of the first 10 horns are going to be what? Plucked up. So there's 10 horns, but when he comes up, he's going to take care, he's going to do something to these 3 kings, right? 3 of these 10. And behold, in this horn, in this little horn, were eyes like the eyes of a man. And guess what this little horn is going to do? He's going to have a mouth that does what?
Speaking great things.
Now, right away, we should notice something, because look at the look at the false prophet up here. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, right? And he had power, and guess what? Guess what he does? He spake as a what?
Dragon.
And guess what this does? He has a mouth speaking what? Not only that, up here in Revelation 13, in verse 1, you see the beast, and then I beheld another beast, right, coming up, and he comes up after this one. In other words, the Antichrist comes first, and then the what?
False prophet.
And then the false prophet. So here we have, guess what? The Antichrist, the 10 kings, and then what? And guess who comes up after them?
Yeah, false prophet.
Another little horn, right? All right. So let's look a little bit more at this. I beheld then because of the voice of the great words which the horn what? Spake, because he has a mouth that does what? That speaks great things. He what? He speaks as a what? Dragon. Okay. So, I beheld even till the beast. So here we are. The Antichrist was slain, and it just shows you he's a human, he's a man, he's a king, and his body is destroyed and given to the burning flame. And so we see this event in Revelation 19. The beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before the Antichrist, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that had worshipped his image. These both, the Antichrist and the false prophet, these both were cast alive into the what? the fire burning with brimstone, or given to the what? The burning flame. Now, let's keep looking, because in Daniel 7, he's going to talk again. He says, these great beasts, which are four kings, and he's going to tell you which shall arise. So Daniel's letting you know that in the future, these kings are going to rise up. And in just a second, he's going to let you know something. Look what he says. But the saints of the Most High, talking about the second coming, shall take the what?
Kingdom.
So you know that this is talking about the end, the last days. Because the saints are going to take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. And then look what he says. Then I would know the truth of the fourth beast. This is the Antichrist, which was diverse from all the others. In other words, there were three before him, and he's different than all the three that were before him. He's exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, his nails of brass, which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. So he's talking about the Antichrist, the fourth kingdom, the fourth king. And of the 10 horns, the 10 kings which were in his head. And of the other which came up. So you got the beast rising, he's got his 10 kings, and who comes after the beast? The false prophet. And so the false prophet, when these 10 kings are here, the false prophet, the little horn, is going to come up, before whom, guess how many? 3 are going to fall. He says, he's letting you know who it is, even of that horn that had eyes and a what? So this is the false prophet, whose look was more stout than his fellows. I beheld, and the same horn, that little horn that came up among these 10, right? That false prophet is going to make war with the saints, and he's going to what? See, I used to, and I think most Christians used to say this is the Antichrist. The problem is this is the Antichrist. And this Antichrist has 10 kings. And then among these 10 kings is going to come up another one, which is the false prophet. And he is going to subdue or take down 3 of those 10 kings. So do y'all see that? If you don't understand, y'all just ask me. All right, y'all understand then, John?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So now look what it says here. He says, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom. Now, and not only that, what does he say? These are 4 kingdoms or kings which shall arise. They're gonna show up. It's the fourth kingdom which shall be diverse from all kingdoms and shall devour the whole earth. This fourth kingdom is going to devour this is the last one. It's going to devour the whole earth, and it shall tread it down and break it in pieces. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom, the 10 kings that are in this last kingdom, are going to be 10 kings. And then guess what? And that shall arise. And after the beast arises and these 10 kings arise, another shall rise when? After them. And that's important, because when we look up here, the beast rises up. Here's the 10 kings. And guess what? Here comes another beast, right? That comes, and the first beast came before what? This first beast came before him, this false prophet. And that's what he's trying to tell you down here. And another shall rise after these 10 kings. And he shall be diverse from the first. And guess what this false prophet's going to do? He shall subdue how many of those 10 kings?
3.
3 of them. And you know what that false prophet's going to do? What does it keep saying over and over and over again? And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and the false prophet, not the Antichrist, the false prophet shall what? He's going to wear out the saints of the Most High, and he's going to think to change times and laws. And the saints the saints are going to be given into his hand until 3.5 years is over with. See, I've always associated that with the beast and the Antichrist. But the little horn is the false prophet. The beast is the Antichrist, and the little horn, the 10 kings, we know who they are, the 10 horns. So the little horn is not the Antichrist. The little horn is the false prophet. And we see it. He rises up. He comes up, another beast comes out of the earth. And guess what? He appears like Christ to most people. He's a false prophet. He's like a lamb. Outwardly, he appears righteous, and outwardly, he appears holy. He appears like a savior. But guess what? When he opens his mouth, he speaks against the Most High. That's what it says. He shall speak great words against the Most High. What does the devil do? He always speaks for God, right? No, that's why he says he speaks as a dragon. It's because that's what the devil does, and that's what the false prophet will do. His words, he will be speaking against the Most High, and he's going to wear out the saints, and he's going to do it for 3.5 years. So what we've determined is the false prophet is the little horn. The beast is the Antichrist. Or when I say that, guys, the beast can also be the Antichrist kingdom, right? And the 10 horns are the 10 kings that are in the Antichrist kingdom. So do y'all understand all that? Because this last part, I'm going to go through this last part. So as long as y'all understand this so far, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's what we're going to do. Daniel is going to let you know where the false prophet is going to come from, okay? I'm going to show you. Because there's going to be 4 beasts that are going to rise up. The 4th one is the Antichrist and his kingdom. That's the last kingdom in the world that's going to devour the whole earth. But he's going to do something. Now watch. Let's look at the 4 beasts. He says, Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of the heaven strove against the great sea. And here he sees, here's the 4 great beasts. And we already know these 4 great beasts are 4 kings or 4 kingdoms which shall arise out of the earth, right? So these 4 great beasts come up from the sea, diverse one from another. So let's look at the first kingdom, because these are kingdoms which shall arise. This first king or this first kingdom is going to be like a lion, okay? This second beast, the second king or the second kingdom is going to be like a bear. The third one, right? The third one is going to be like a leopard, right? And the 4th one, which we know who the 4th one is, this is the Antichrist and his kingdom. The 4th one is going to have what? 10 horns. So, and we know that the 10 horns are in his head, and the head represents what? The kingdom, right? So it says that the beast has a head, and that head is his kingdom. So the beast is one of the heads. Y'all understand that, right? Remember, in Satan, he has what? 7 heads, right? And we know the beast is one of them, right? So here's what I want you to see something. Here's one. The first, here's one of the other heads. So here's a kingdom. Here's a king, right? And guess what? That's one head. Here's a bear. Here's a beast. That is the second head, right? And we know this fourth beast, that's three heads. But the beast that rises up in Revelation 13 has how many heads? Y'all know?
10 heads.
He has how many right here? 7.
Yeah.
So when you so let's count them. So the lion, the first one, that's one head. The second, the bear, is 2. The 4, that makes 3, right? So there's 3 heads. But look at the leopard, the third kingdom. There was a leopard which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also, this third beast had how many heads?
4.
4 plus 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6, plus 1 is what? 7.
7.
So when you see, when you add all 4 of these beasts' heads up, you come up with 7. So what happens is when you see these are 4 beasts rising up out of the sea, 4 beasts. But down here you only have what? 1 beast. But what's going to happen is this beast here, the 4th one, all 4 of these are going to be incorporated into his kingdom. Do you understand what that means?
Yeah.
In other words,
Combined.
all 4, the lion, the bear, the leopard, because there's 4 heads, 5 heads, 6 heads. All 7 of these heads are going to be incorporated into this final kingdom, this 4th kingdom. And that's why he says, I stood upon the sea and I saw a beast rise up out of the sea having what? 7 heads, which are the 7 kings on Satan, and 10 horns. Now look what he says. Just to let you know that this final kingdom, this 4th kingdom, incorporates all of these. Look what it says. He has how many horns?
10.
Okay. There's your 10 horns. And the beast which I saw was likened to, guess what? A what? A leopard. Look what it says here. The 3rd kingdom is a what? A leopard. And his feet were as the feet of what?
Bear.
A bear. Right? Whoops. Right there. A bear. And his mouth was the mouth of, guess what? A lion. So do you see all 4 of these kingdoms will become one kingdom in the end? And you'll have the 7 heads. And the 3rd one has, guess what? 4 heads. Now that's important, guys, because we know that the beast of the 4th kingdom, we know that's the Antichrist, right? And we know in the Antichrist 4th kingdom, he has these 10 kings. But we want to know, where does because the false prophet comes up after what? After, remember the 10 horns, he comes up among those 10 horns, those 10 kings, and he subdues 3 kings. So the Bible, what Daniel is going to do in chapter 8 is he's going to let you know where the false prophet comes from. And I'm going to show you. And then we'll close. Now watch this. Now understand, a lot of times in prophecy, what he'll do is he'll talk about the past, but like he'll talk about Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, and Rome in the past, right? But those are only partial fulfillments. And so he's going to let you know here, and I'll just read it. Then I lifted up my eyes. Hold on one second. Okay, let me see if I can get my mouse to work. Okay, so right here. Then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a what? A ram. Okay, so I'm going to tell you, and then I'll prove it to you, and I'll show it to you. In chapter 8, he is not going to talk about the 1st kingdom. Okay, So remember up here, there are 4 beasts that come up out of the sea, right? He's not going to talk about the first one, and he's not going to talk about the 4th one. He's only going to talk about the 2nd one and the 3rd one, okay? That's all of chapter 8. All he's going to do is he's going to show you where the false prophet's coming from, okay? Now watch this. So here's the 2nd kingdom. I saw a ram which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. And I saw this ram. Now this is the 2nd kingdom. I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand before him. Talking about the ram. Neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand. Talking about the ram, the 2nd kingdom. But the 2nd king of the kingdom did according to his will and became great. And as I was considering the ram, right, the 2nd kingdom, guess what? A he-goat, which is going to be the 3rd kingdom. And now look where the he-goat comes from. He came from the west on the face of the whole earth and touched not the ground. Now, we're not going to talk about this today, guys. I believe this is talking about the United States, okay? Now, prophetically, in the past, he's talking about the Alexander the Great and the Grecian Empire. But as far as the future is concerned, I think he's talking about the United States. And so you're going to see this he-goat, right? Because remember, this is the 3rd king or the 3rd kingdom. So you're going to see this kingdom come from the west on the face of the whole earth. And what is on the west of the face of the whole earth? That would be the United States. And they touch not the ground. And so this goat, this 3rd kingdom, had a notable horn, which is a picture of a king, right? So this 3rd kingdom is going to have a king, and he's going to be a very notable king. And when this king comes against the ram, right, guess what's going to happen? He's going to come against the ram, which has 2 horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and this he-goat is going to run into the ram in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close to the ram, the 2nd kingdom, and he was moved with choler against him, and he's going to smote the ram. So the he-goat, the 3rd kingdom, is going to come up against the ram, and he's going to smote him, and he's going to break him. And the ram, there was going to be no power in the ram or the 2nd kingdom to stand before him. And he cast him down to the ground and stamped him upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of the he-goat or the 3rd kingdom's hand. Okay? Therefore, the he-goat, the king or the 3rd kingdom, the he-goat waxed very great, and when the 3rd kingdom was strong, the great horn, that king that was ruling over that 3rd kingdom, is going to be what? Broken. And for it came up, because he's a notable horn, right? But when he's broken, guess what's going to come up out of that one king? Now that's interesting, because when we look back over at the 3rd kingdom in Daniel 7, right, which is like a leopard, the beast had what?
4 heads.
4 heads. And guess what you're going to see? You're going to see 4 notable heads or horns. Okay? So, look what he says. He says, and for it came up 4 notable ones. When that great one of the 3rd empire, he's broken, these 4 are going to come up toward the 4 winds of heaven. And look what he says. And out of one of those, in the 3rd kingdom, out of one of those is going to come forth, and look what he says. You recognize who that is?
Yeah, your horn, false prophet.
or the false prophet, right? That's who the false prophet is. So out of the out of the third kingdom is where he's coming from. Now he doesn't come up until after the beast comes in power. He doesn't come up until after the 10 kings are in power. Then he comes up, but he's letting you know that the little horn is going to come from the third kingdom, which shall arise. And like I said, I think that's the United States. So I think the false prophet is going to come from, I think he is going to probably be an Israelite, which it means a black man. And look what he says. He says, out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great toward the south and toward the east and toward the pleasant land. And it, the little horn, waxed great, even to the host of heaven. And it, the little horn, cast down some of the host and of the stars to the ground and stamped upon them. Yea, the false prophet, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host. Now look what it says, because I used to hold this as the Antichrist was the one doing this. And by him, the little horn or the false prophet, by him in the middle of the tribulation, remember, arms are going to stand on his part and they're going to go into the temple, and guess what he's going to do? The daily sacrifice shall be what? So the false prophet is the one who is going to take away the daily sacrifice. And the false prophet is going to place the place of the sanctuary. I think he's going to destroy the sanctuary. And so anyway, that's important. So look what else it says. And he said, behold, I will make thee know, Daniel, what. So he's letting you know all this stuff that you just read. This is the interpretation about the ram and the he-goat, okay? And even though some of those things took place in the past, guys, the angel is going to let you know. He's going to interpret it for you. And look what he says. He says, behold, Daniel, I'm going to make thee know what shall be when? In the last end of the indignation. For at the time appointed, guess what? The end shall be. So he's letting you know that the things that he just got through talking about, the little horn and the second and that third kingdom, right? And those four kings, when in the third kingdom, when that main king he falls, those four kings that rise up, out of one of them, that little horn's going to come. He says that takes place at the end of the world. He says the ram, which thou sawest, having two horns, are the kings of Media and Persia. He's talking about Iran. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia. I think he's talking about the United States here. So the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king of the third kingdom. And that when he is broken, guess what? Four kings are going to stand up, right? Four stood up out of it. Four kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation. So there's going to be four that's going to come up out of that nation, the third kingdom. But not in his power, because the great horn is going to be broken. They're going to come up, but he's not going to have power over any of these four. And look what it says. And in the latter time of the third kingdom, their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark senses shall stand up. Okay? So out of one of these four kingdoms, this little horn's going to come, right? And look what it says. His power, the false prophet, or the little horn's power shall be what? Mighty, but not by his what? His own power. Now look, so look what it says about the false prophet, okay? And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And look what it says. He exercised all the power of the what?
First beast.
Beast that was before him. So he's going to have, the false prophet will have all the power that the Antichrist has, right? Because up here it says what? His power shall be mighty, but not by his what? Own power. So if he has all the power of the Antichrist, where does the Antichrist get his power? And they worship the dragon, which gave power unto the Antichrist. And so if the devil is giving his power to the Antichrist, and the false prophet has all the power of the Antichrist, where does the false prophet get his power? From the dragon, right? So when he says that this little horn, his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power, he gets that power from the devil. And he shall destroy wonderfully and shall prosper and practice. And look what it says. He shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. And that's what he says. He has power, the power of the devil, to give life to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast, the false prophet, if you don't, he's going to give power to this image. And if you don't worship that image, guess what? You're going to be killed. And that's what he says. He shall what? Destroy the mighty and the what? And the holy people. And so here's what I want you to understand about the false prophet. He says, he is going to do great wonders. He's going to make fire come down from heaven. And he's going to do it in the sight of what? The men and all the people in the world. Right? And he's going to deceive them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he does, which he had power to do in the sight of the Antichrist. So he's going to do all these great wonders in the sight of men. He's going to do all these miracles in the sight of the beast. And he's going to say to everybody in the world, to all them that dwell on the earth, that they should make a what? An image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. So they're going to create this image, guys. Now this isn't the beast, right? This is an image of the beast, because what he's going to say is, wow, this beast, he was dead and now he's alive, right? And we're going to make an image. Now, if you look in the Old Testament, remember Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, what did Nebuchadnezzar do? He built a what? An image, right? And when all the instruments blew, everybody was to fall down and do what? It wasn't to worship him necessarily, but it was to worship this image that he had created, right? So what I want you to understand is, if you're in the sight of the beast, if the Antichrist, you're standing in front of the Antichrist, they're going to expect you to bow down and worship him. But for the most part, most of the world is not going to be able to be what? Most of the world will not be present when the Antichrist, in other words, if the beast is in Jerusalem, is everybody in the world going to be in Jerusalem? No. Y'all could be in the Philippines, I could be in the United States. So we're not going to be made to worship, necessarily bow down and worship at his feet. But I think they're going to create an image, right? And the false prophet is going to have power to give what? Life to this image, that the image of the beast should be able to speak. And he's going to cause as many as would not worship, not necessarily the beast, but the what? The image. So the image can be present in the entire world. In other words, that if that image appears before you, guess what they're going to expect you to do? To bow down to it. And so if it was just the beast, you would have to be present. But it doesn't say the beast. It says if you don't worship him or his image, they're going to cause you to die. And the false prophet is the one that is going to tell the world, listen, he was alive and now he's dead. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to make an image. And guess what? He's going to have power to give life to that image. And he is going to force you to worship the image. Or if you don't worship the image, guess what? He's going to cause you that you should be what? Killed. Right? And that's pretty much what he says up here. He says he's going to destroy the mighty and the holy people. All right.